Okay, thanks everybody. We're here to talk about Monarch. It's Metazoa's new relational data migration tool for Salesforce. We've just released it as a standalone product that can help you move data between Salesforce orgs, and we'll be diving into that today and showing you everything that it can do. Okay, so the presenters today, I'm Tom. And we also have Sridhar with us. Sridhar is going to be walking us through the demo and answering all the hard questions. So just a little quick overview about what you're going to see today. Monarch is a tool that migrates related data sets between any Salesforce orgs. And it has a lot of nice tricks that you'll see today as part of the presentation. And one of the big ones off the top is that we maintain all of those relationships between the data that you're moving. So all those painful post-deploy steps you might have with something like Data Loader don't exist here. You can have any hierarchy of relationships between your data, and that will be maintained with the move. We also scramble fields. So if you've got data that you're maybe giving to developers from your production to build on, but there's sensitive data there, you could scramble any of those fields that you needed to protect that data. We also do field remapping. So if you need to map fields or objects to other fields or objects on the fly in a data move, we can do that. And you'll also see today we have an artificial intelligence that will actually analyze different packages and develop templates for them. So if you've got things like CPQ or FinancialForce or some type of large managed package, we can build a template for that for you on the fly that you can then customize. So it's just a huge time saver. And the last note that I wanted to make here for everybody, with everything going on in the world and all these interesting times that we're living, we wanted to make Monarch free for now. So until May 31st, the tool is 100% free. There's zero obligation. We're not asking you for a credit card. We're not asking you to sign up for anything at all. We're also providing personalized support and training during that period. So when you grab Monarch from the App Exchange, you'll get an email that'll have a link. You can sign up for a training class, and we can help you with whatever data scenarios that you're working with. We'll also put the link to Monarch in the chat today so that you'll be able to have that before you leave. So if you want to find out where we are in the App Exchange, you can just follow that link. So one last quick note, a lot of you know that we also do a product called Snapshot, and that's sort of our comprehensive suite for Salesforce. And Snapshot includes the functionality of Monarch. So I noticed we have a couple existing customers on the line. If you're a Snapshot customer, you're going to be able to do everything that you see today. I think it's great for you to hang on and watch everything that it can do, because this will be a really nice prep. But, the functionality of Monarch, while we do have it standalone now, is also part of our Snapshot suite. And in addition to that, you can see bullet point 2, there's relational data migration. But in addition to that, Snapshot also includes clicks not code release management, comprehensive org documentation, a whole bunch of org optimization and cleanup tools for getting rid of technical debt, as well as a suite of tools that manage profiles and permission sets. So if you're looking for some of those things in addition to data migration, our Snapshot tool is a great way to go because it'll handle all of those functions for you. Okay, so with that, we're going to hand it off to Sridhar here, and we're going to actually dive in and take a look at the product. So Sridhar, off to you, sir.
Thank you, Tom. I just shared out my screen. Just want to make a quick check that you can see it.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. So folks, this is Monarch that I just launched. We are primarily a client for those people who are used to Snapshot. We followed the same principle. There is a package that you install on your Salesforce org, but the primary use of it is going to be from a client side. So that contributes to the security aspect of it, because this client that's running on your machine is talking directly to your Salesforce org or orgs. We never see any of your metadata, data, or security credentials there. So from that perspective, security is totally maintained in that everything is always in your control. So that said, I'm running this on a Mac. 90% of our customers are using this on a PC. So either OS that you plan to use there, we have full support. You will get the exact same feature set. So what I have done here is I have installed the client on my box here and then launched the tool. And here is the very first screen that you see. Essentially, what this is asking for is you to log into an org and then choose what you're looking to do. In this case, I am looking to build a data set. Building a data set is exactly what you do with data loader as well. You're just downloading the data. And then if you want to migrate the data over to another Salesforce org, because Monarch, as Tom mentioned, is a Salesforce to Salesforce focused tool, you're going to be doing that migration using migrate data sets. Managing it, of course, is done through management. We're going to be going through all three of those steps today. I'm going to start off by building a data set, and I've typed in my credentials, my username, password, and what kind of account it is. In this case, it's a production org. And I don't need a security token because my IP is whitelisted. And again, what this is designed to do is go in and start off creating a metadata, a data backup, right? And there are a few facilities available here. You can create a brand new data set. If you have an existing data set, you can replace the data. In other words, refresh that data set, right? You've already set some parameters there. I want to grab X, Y, and Z. You just want to get the updated data for that. This option exists for that. Right? And as Tom mentioned, we also support the idea of templates. You don't want to set the whole thing up over and over and over again in case you have recurring needs there. So we support the idea of templates, and every data set that you create is automatically a template, so you can just simply pick that up and use it. In this case, I'm creating a brand new template. But as Tom mentioned, we also have the ability to work with some of our predefined templates. This is evolving. This is for starters, we are supporting some of the very well-known providers out there, people that have regularly problems for things like CPQ. So we support that. And when I launch this, what it's going to do is it's going to tell our AI to go discover your data model. So as your version changes, as you customize your org there, it goes and discovers every object that you have in the particular CPQ data model and any relations to and any relationships to it, and then build out the data model. That obviously, as you can imagine, takes a little bit of time. In this case, it takes about 3.5 minutes. So just to save you some time there, I am not going to do that, but I am going to walk you through some of the other functionality. So for that, I'm going to cancel out of it and then start with my demo org here. So I'm going to choose the org, and my credentials are saved. Credentials are saved on my local machine, so nobody else gets access to it, and they are encrypted at rest as well, right? So with logging in there, still on the build, we're going to walk through the process right here. I'm going to create a brand new data set. I've been through that before, so it remembers my name. I'm going to create a brand new template as well. And by the way, these templates, you can share with your colleagues as well. You can import, export these templates as well, right? I'm going to create a brand new template called demo data. And of course, it already exists. I'm going to call it demo data 2. With that selection, it displays all the objects that are available into my in my org. We do use the bulk data API for the most part, but there are special cases for handling things like attachments and content and knowledge that you want to migrate over. Those things are not supported very well by the bulk data API, if at all there is support. So we want to give you a full-fledged data migration experience. So we have special cased a whole bunch of these things. So you don't have to worry about whether they are supported by the bulk data API or not. We will support them regardless. In this case, it just queries and then finds out the objects there, and I'm going to create a brand new data set. You can create a data set based upon a filter. Right? This is just like Salesforce reports. Yeah, you can say, record types, give me accounts with record types equals partner, or billing city equals New York, whatever you prefer, right? Or select all records with a limit there. In this case, I actually want to go through a setup right here where I'm going to be selecting named records just to show you a scenario. And the scenario is I'm migrating over 3 General Electric records. And just to kind of quickly show you what I am doing here, I'm going to bring up my org. This is my org where I'm bringing the data from, and you can see the 3 General Electric orgs there. I got through that by search. I'll go into one of them just to show you what things are available. So first, the hierarchy, right? I have 3 records, one in New York, one in Texas, one in California. And then going to any of these things that are contact setup, opportunity setup, cases setup. There's an entire hierarchy of items that we are going to be moving over. So I've selected the 3 General Electric records that I'm migrating over. And with that selection, Snapshot gives you a way of bringing over all the related entities, right? So any object that is selected, it automatically displays a whole bunch of other objects that relate to the selected object. So I can go select anything that is related, and there is also the field that establishes the relationship is also displayed. Case, contact, I can always multi-select, and I'm going to go select opportunity as well. And by the way, folks, you can keep going down the hierarchy. I can go select all the relate opportunity line items and such, and there are no theoretical limits to the number of levels you could get to. We have a customer in New Zealand that has about 13 levels deep in their hierarchy, and we move them over just fine. So there are no limits to it. And I am using some standard objects here just because everybody identifies with standard objects, but we work exactly the same way, whether you're looking at managed objects, custom objects, whatever be the case, we have the ability to work with it, right? So what you're getting through this is I have put a filter, essentially selected which accounts I wanted to pull over, and it's automatically going to pull over all the related cases and contacts, opportunities, opportunity line items that relate to it, whatnot, right? Without missing a beat. So this is useful for taking care of orgs that have limits there. If you're migrating over to some dev pro boxes and such, those boxes have some limits there. So this is useful to limit what you're moving over. For whatever objects that you've selected, you have the ability to automatically pick up the fields. This is exactly what you do with data loader, where you're picking and choosing what fields that you want to migrate over. In this case, we are automatically selecting those fields for you just to kind of keep things moving. And that is selected based upon your write access. So if you have write access, update access to it, it's automatically selecting them. Things like formula fields or last modified, things like that are left behind. By the way, if those audit fields are enabled for write, you might want to select them. So that's perfectly okay to go ahead and pick them up. If you don't have access to that, no worries, we will silently suppress it. Nothing is going to error out. So that's for every one of the objects above the line there. These are the objects that I selected for inserting or updating. We also support the idea of external references. External references are, think of these as data that you already have in your org that you simply want to hook up with. Right? For example, users, and users already exist for the most part. You're moving some data over. You want to set the right owner information or who they report to, and last modified by, created by, things like that. And you can select any field that you want to use to identify the right user there. Maybe you have a couple of John Smiths in the org. You don't want to connect with the wrong John Smith. So you can select things based upon Federation ID, employee number, email address, whatever you prefer. Right? So select whatever you need and on to the next. So this is the data load step. I'm going to actually download the data. And as I mentioned before, we are using the bulk data API to download all this data, but there are special casing all over the place for some of the interesting objects like, attachments and content and knowledge articles and things like that as well, right? So there we go. We can watch the data actually come through. We'll give that a second to let Salesforce finish. There we go. So we got some data, right? Now, by the way, folks, this also can be scheduled. So it's pretty easy for you to come in and say, I want to set up a schedule and move forward. That scheduling capability is available in Snapshot. We target focused migrations for Monarch here, right? So with that done, I'm going to get out of this and I'm going to start a migration. I'm going to migrate over to a completely different org. We built from this particular org. We're going to go over to another org. Before I go, just to show you that this is being done in a real time, I'm going to open up another browser. I'm going to do a search just to show you there are no General Electric accounts here. And we're going to actually start a migration. So it logs into that org. The first thing that it does is it starts discovering some of the interesting metadata out there. These could be, what objects you have, if there are any triggers, workflows, and duplicate rules, things like that that might hinder your or need to be kept track of as part of your data load. Those are the things that we are actively searching. If you are using our snapshot tool, that is automatically taken care of based on the metadata backup. In this case, it goes and discovers all that stuff real time. There we go. So I'll pick up the demo data 2 data set that we just created. And you can see the hierarchy of objects that we just created. I'm going to use that as the source. The next part is actually matching fields. So what this does is it's giving you the ability to decide how to identify a record if it exists on the destination or not. So that way you might want to update that record instead of inserting a dupe, right? And you're going to be doing that for every one of the objects. In this case, we automatically pick up the name there. If you have an external ID, we will automatically pick that up as well. But as Tom mentioned, we don't need to get hindered by the fact that you don't have an external ID. We don't want to change your data model either. So you can comfortably use a combination key. So in the General Electric scenario that we saw before, go back to the hierarchy here. So there are various General Electric records with the exact same name, just in different billing states and billing cities. So I'm going to capitalize on that and choose billing name and city there, right? By the way, there is one interesting thing that we added in as part of this, which is virtual IDs. So instead of changing your data model, we opted to add a flag here. This is a flag that tells Monarch to remember your source and destination ID. On the first pass, when you're just migrating the data over, it makes no difference whatsoever. It's just telling Monarch there to remember the IDs being created. But on subsequent migrations, if you are moving the same data set again with some updates to the source data and such, that comes in useful. So I wanted to add that in just to show you how that works, right? So we're going to be matching by name and billing city. If this fails, then the virtual ID comes into play, and that's typically useful for subsequent migrations. And you can go in and select this for every one of those objects that you need there. In this case, also, I want to handle an external reference there. This is matching by whatever. I want to identify the right user. I want to identify them by employee number or just by name, whatever I prefer. In this case, I'm going to just leave that as a name match, right? Again, any place I have an external ID, I can comfortably pick that up and use it. In case I don't have an external ID, it's perfectly fine to use a name match or a combination key match. With matching done, on to the next. This is data scrambling. For you folks in the healthcare financial industries there, this is extremely useful. You need to handle PII. So we give you the ability to help you select whatever fields you need, and only the data in those fields gets randomized. And what that means is any field that you pick up, and we take care of data types as well. date times remain date times. If you pick up a phone or an email or whatever kind of data field there, we take care of the data type and they will remain as such. If you pick up a pick list field, a random pick list value is going to be picked up out of the defined set of values, which essentially means that you need to keep track of the dependent and controlling mappings and things like that. So they get pretty interesting. So choose wisely, right? To help you handle those kind of issues there, we also have the ability to deactivate some of the things that could hinder your data load: duplicate rules, workflow rules, validation rules, your process builder flows, apex triggers, and we highlight some of these objects that come into play as well. So all you need to do is check the box. It'll run a metadata transaction, disable the, in this case, validation rules, that run your data migration, and then run another metadata transaction to re-enable your validation rule. So it's pretty smart about doing that. And that that metadata transaction at the end is going to execute irrespective of whether you get an error or not in your data migration. So that way your org is never left in a broken state. Right? So there are various things that you can turn on and off, and that includes restricted pick lists as well. Right? So choose what you need, and then onto the actual migration itself. And for the migration, again, we're using the bulk data API. And as part of that, there are some interesting scenarios we brought in, which is upsert records only. For starters, it can go in and insert update data. But there are cases that our customers brings over to us, which is, they use Monarch for handling training orgs, where the same training data goes in over and over. Right? So in that cases, you need the ability to delete the existing data and then insert new data. So that scenario is also handled there. Testing orgs, training orgs, things like that. This is a common setup. You also have the ability to just go in and delete the metadata, clear out the org. I don't really care about any insertions at that point in time. So whatever option you prefer, you can absolutely go for it. In this particular case, I'm simply going to upsert the data. And it gets a confirmation onto the actual migration. And by the way, folks, for those people worried about errors at this point in time, in case there are errors, in most cases, there are a couple of things that do creep in. We automatically create retry data sets there, which means anything that fails, it has the ability to pull that up and then push that into a different data set. So you can then migrate over only that limited retry data set instead of migrating the whole thing over again. Right? So we took care of that as well. So there we go. This is all getting migrated over. We'll wait for a second for Salesforce to catch up here. Fantastic. So I also set up some errors here just to show you how things would look when you see those errors there. So we do get the errors from Salesforce and then open them up to you. And I'll also show you the retry data set that gets automatically created for you. So it goes through and gives me a success message, the final thing, how much got created. And we will come back here, do a quick search just to show everything got created. There we go. Everything got created. My contacts got created. My opportunities got created. I'll switch into Lightning here. Very nice. We'll go to companies and new this week and my General Electric with the hierarchy. And you can see that the hierarchy remained. The dates were, the billing cities and whatnot was all set the right way. And all my contacts, opportunities, cases were all, their relationships were all maintained. So I just moved over some data, limited sets of data, but just showed you how to do all of that stuff pretty easily. Now let's actually make things interesting here. I told you how we can move things over, maintaining those relationships, even when data set changes, right? So let's go do that. I'm gonna go into the New York record right here and then go over a pretty simple change. Let's say somebody got excited and changed my General Electric name to GE, shortened it up. Boom, the name got changed, which means my name and billing city match is no longer valid, right? It's going to attempt to migrate a duplicate. So let's see how that works, how Monarch handles that. Finish up the migration here. I'm going to go back to my source org and then execute this migration again. Instead of creating a brand new data set, I'm going to replace the existing data set. And you can see it created a retry data set as well based on the previous migration. Something failed. I'm going to choose my old migration. So I'm just going to replace that existing data set. I know what thing I did. I want to choose the existing template as well so it remembers everything. I don't have to redo everything. Notice what it did. First, it remembered what I previously migrated because I selected the template. And because the template remembered what records I migrated over, it also picked up the updated names from the data set. So let's go through, get the whole sets of data. Yes, I want to update it. That's using the bulk data API again to download all the data. And we're going to be migrating this over and show you how it migrates and updates the right record instead of inserting a duplicate, even though the matching was incorrect. So there we go, migrate, switch over to my destination. Updated data, matching name and billing city. This is again what I was talking about before. Name and billing city, the name has been changed, which means my matching criteria will essentially create a dupe. I don't want that dupe, which means I have to rely on something else, which is where the virtual ID comes into play. Figures out that I have migrated this metadata, I've migrated this data before, so it updates the right record. My data scrum. I'm going to migrate the data set again. There we go. We just finished migrating all of that stuff, mostly successful. So let's switch over and see the data set on the destination. I'm simply going to refresh the data set. And my refreshed data set shows that I now have GE instead of General Electric. And I can go back into my hierarchy and see the exact same setup exists, except that it is now called GE. So the virtual ID tells Snapshot to go in and update the data instead of going in and inserting a dupe, even though the matching rules are no longer valid. So it gives me some fantastic options to pick and choose what makes sense and remember previous migrations. And remember, this is again all done without having to update your data model or rely on an external ID, even if your matching is wrong, right, on subsequent data. So gives you some fantastic data sets. So let's come back to Monarch here and see what things we walked through. We've walked through downloading data, migrating data, retaining all the relationships. We have taken care of doing that without using external IDs, and subsequent migrations of data will be understood and related the exact same way that you wanted, even if your matching rules are wrong, right? So some great facilities. Some of the other things I want to quickly walk through is managing of these data sets. I'll log into my org, source org again. A few quick things I want to go through. First, remapping of the data. You can pick up any data and then say, I don't want to field mapping, right? I can go in and say, this field goes into another field without having to worry about matching up the API names. This is extremely useful in case you are needing some field mapping there. For example, if I have, say, country billing country code that needs to go over to a completely different field, and we do take care of the data type as well. So we are doing pick list matches here, so I can do field mapping this way, right? And or throw away the maps and then go through, or field value maps. Maybe I have some data set right here where, yes, my data set has yes, but that should not go through as yes. I need to change the value as maybe, and that executes some ETL as part of the migration. We have that facility as well, right? With that, what really happens is it turns around and changes the data set, updates the data set, and then I can execute that migration to insert the values after that ETL is taken care of, right? That's the remap information, right? We also can import in CSV data, and Tom mentioned this at the beginning of the call. We can bring in some CSV data. So I can create a data set, bring in some account data and some opportunity data. There is my opportunity CSV files. And it remembers what fields you want to match up there. You can create a data set using that and converts that data set to XML, and then you can execute a migration importing in CSV into Salesforce. This is extremely useful. Some of our customers bring in data from, Oracle or Microsoft Dynamics and things like that. It goes in and takes care of those kind of data imports without going through too much work. And the last is data set comparison. This is extremely useful when you want to, when you get into scenarios like configuration tracking. For example, you have CPQ. You put a whole bunch of configuration information in there, pricing rules and price action, price condition, whatever. This gives you a way of comparing data sets and identifying how these data sets are different. So in this case, let's say I have demo data and demo data 2. It's identifying what objects are available here. Choose an object, it identifies what things are new based upon various criteria. In this case, it identifies a new record that has been brought in and an existing record that got deleted when it uses the source and the destination paradigm, right? And you also have the ability to identify differences here. So XML level differences can be figured out here as well. So there's some various facilities to identify differences. This is extremely useful for you, for those who keep track of configuration of managed packages and move through. And all of these can be picked up and then created a report out of. And you can also right click and export these differences to various file formats, PDF, CSV, Excel, things like that. So essentially, we have a tool here which gives you the ability for starters, data migrate, and as part of that data migration, you don't have to worry about any of the relationship mapping. We take care of all of that stuff. But as part of that, we don't need an external ID. We can keep track of what's related to what and help you create that stuff. We have predefined templates to help you speed through things like FinancialForce and CPQ and field services lightning, all of their configuration, move things over as well. And then additionally, the CSV import and compare data sets gives you a complete data migration solution through Monarch. So with that, let me hand it right back to you, Tom. Maybe you can take a few questions here.
Yeah, we actually have a lot of questions. So let me, if you'll stop your share, please. All right, I am going to go ahead and share my screen here just to give you guys some info on where you can get in contact with us. Let me share that with everybody. Okay, so if you would like to learn more about either of our products, Snapshot or Monarch that you saw today, there's our contact info. We'd love to hear from you. Just a quick note, we are going to be sponsoring Virtual Dreamin' in our new way of working right now. There's a Virtual Dreamin' coming up on May 16th. It's 24 hours of sessions and all kinds of great stuff. I believe it's completely free for attendees. So you should definitely check out Virtual Dreamin'. We'll be sponsoring and doing lots of presentations there. And also, of course, you can get Monarch on the App Exchange. And I did want to reiterate one more time, we've made Monarch completely free until May 31st. There's no obligation of any kind, shape, or form. We will also give you personalized training and support during that period. So if you have some data moves you need to get done over the next couple of months, feel free to grab Monarch and reach out to us, and we'll get you set up and help you get that work done. So just wanted to throw all that out there. Now let's get on to some questions. So a lot of questions here, guys, so we'll try to move quick. So one question is about pricing for Monarch. So yes, it is separate from our Snapshot tool. Again, I want to reiterate, if you're a Snapshot customer, you've got all this functionality right now. So what you saw today, the data migration, is part of our suite of tools, Snapshot. If you need more help with that, just schedule a training session from your support menu and we'll get you trained up. So as far as pricing goes, Monarch will, as we said, be completely free till the end of May. And then after that, it will continue to be free for any non-production orgs. So sandboxes, developer orgs, data moves between those are free. And then we do have a price per production org. And so it will be $5K for an annual license for a production org. And that includes unlimited users of Monarch, support, training, everything included. So if you, after May 31st, if you're interested in continuing to use it with some production orgs, we'd love to have you license up, but obviously no obligation there at all. Okay, so let's get on to some questions here. So one question, it says, are you able to pull in second tier objects like opportunity products, price book entries, etc.? I think that came in before we showed that, but yes, as you saw, we can go down as many levels through the child-parent hierarchy as you want. As we mentioned, we had a customer that went 13 levels deep, from parent to child of that, the child of that, the child of that, really, really deep. There's no limit on that. You just have to map it out. Once you've mapped it out, you've got a template that you can just reuse. So yeah, no problems doing that at all. And then the other question is, if you run it again, will the data be updated or will duplicate records be created? We obviously, I think that came in early too. We spent a lot of time on that today. We have, combination keys and virtual IDs that help you prevent dupes that will update the existing records rather than dupe them. Now, as Sridhar also showed, if you want a fresh data set, you could delete out the data set and then put a fresh one in if you had that scenario. But we have the full facility in there to prevent dupes or anything like that. So we have a question here. Would love to see a content example. How does this work with, so many million records or whatever? So the answer to that is we use the bulk data API, which is pretty robust. So I'll just give you an example. I did a test move a week or so ago where I moved 350,000 records. There were a bunch of related stuff, and it took about 30 minutes. So you can move some pretty big data sets pretty quickly. We've had customers do up to 1 million. It works. It's time consuming. So you do want to leave, it running and that kind of thing. But if you're doing a really, really big move, we recommend breaking it up into those chunks. So if you're, moving millions of records or whatever, you want to intelligently break it up, we can help you do that. And we've actually got a new feature coming out pretty soon in the future that'll allow for boxcaring, where you could set up, say multiple chunks of 300,000 records, and then it'll run through them in order and get it all done for you in one fell swoop. So that one should help you there. Question is, do we have nonprofit pricing? Yes, we do. We provide 30% off for nonprofits for both of our products, both Monarch and Snapshot. So just reach out to sales address that you see on the screen, and we'll do that. So we got a question here, Sridhar. Do we have any if-then ETL logic?
Not at this particular time. This particular time, it's a straight up field data mapping there and replace. If then else map kind of ETL feature is in an upcoming release. We do have that in the roadmap. We do get that done for you. If there is a particular scenario that you are interested in, reach out to us and we can prioritize that request appropriately.
Okay, so the next question is, does the tool support notes and attachment migration?
Yes, we can migrate both notes and attachments. Notes is just a standard, bulk data API migration. That's perfectly fine, but the attachments are not done properly, done well in the bulk data API. So we do special case that, but you will be able to migrate notes and attachments using Monarch just as easily as any other data element.
Yeah, so just to add a little bit of color to that, we also support other things like knowledge articles that aren't supported by the bulk data API. We'll move over to the SOAP API and handle them that way. So we have pretty comprehensive support for a lot of those things that other tools do not move. So the next question here, if we are consultants working with multiple clients, can we buy a license for ourselves and switch the license to the production org we are using each time? So we have a special program for SIs, obviously, both with our Snapshot and our Monarch tool. It's different from normal customers. You're not using the same production org every day. It's different. So yeah, we have an SI program that addresses that. Just reach out to us and we can cover that. We also do a lot of, co-marketing. We have a really nice, partner program with SIs that we can tell you about as well. So the other one, you showed how you can disable a workflow trigger. How about CPQ product rules and approval rules?
Yeah, so this is designed to disable the metadata items, the workflows, triggers, and duplicate rules, things like that. The data elements that come up as part of the managed package, like price rules, product rules, things like that. That is not handled at this point in time. We have talked about this, so it is in the roadmap, but we do not have support to that. We'll be doing that as a upcoming release there. Again, if this is something that makes a big difference to you, give us a call and we can prioritize it.
Cool. So we have a question. Do we have any data manipulation tools? I think we saw that as well. We do indeed allow you to map fields and objects and do actual data transforms like Sridhar showed, where every time it says yes in this field, make it say maybe, or maybe I just want to take this field and map it to this field over here rather than, have it come in as its own field. So yeah, we do have a full set of data manipulation tools in there to help you with some of those scenarios where that's really an issue. All right, a few more questions here. Let me jump over to the chat. I think some people were in the chat. So just somebody asked if we were going to have the recording. Yes, we'll have a recording of this sent out to everybody that registered. Should be in the next day or two. Also in the chat, if you're looking for it, is the link to the App Exchange. You can see it on the screen here. I realize you can't click on that. So in the chat, there's the link. If you scroll through, you should see it, the App Exchange link for Monarch. And again, it's free. Go get it, and we'll train you up. So here's a question. In the loaded fields, I had an issue where I could not include the billing address or the shipping address or geolocation due to them being concatenated from the other fields. Is there a way to see which fields also fall into that category when deciding which fields to select?
Yeah, we couldn't get that feature in before the release date hit. So yes, that is getting fixed here shortly. So just wait for an update, and I'll throw up a Twitter message about that when that got fixed, when that get fixed. So those concatenated fields or composite fields, as they call it, are an issue today. You got to pick and choose those fields. Most of the times, those concatenated fields and composite fields are not writable. So they would get automatically filtered out. I presume you selected all fields there, and that's really where you saw the problem. We do want to do better. So that is getting fixed here shortly. So just wait for the update.